Hi everyone, I'd like to begin today's webinar by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands in which we meet today. I'm joining you from Ngunnawal country. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. My name is Ashley and I'll be your facilitator for today's panel session. So this session is intended to cover a variety of frequently asked questions for our program offerings. And as it's the first session, we're just going to try and cover as much as we can and go through the questions as promptly and as quickly as we can. It is our first session for the ANU Virtual Open Week. We have several other sessions on offer throughout the coming week, including sessions on clinical courses and internships, master classes on special topics, and further insight into the ANU Law student experience. So for those who aren't familiar with our programs at ANU Law, I'll give you a very quick breakdown. For undergraduate study, we have the Bachelor of Laws Honors Program, or the LLB. You can take it as a single degree or a flexible double degree. For postgraduate study options, we have the Juris Doctor Program. We have two graduate certificates, one the Graduate Certificate of Law and one of New Technology Law, or New Technologies Law. Master of Laws program and the Master of International Law and Diplomacy, which is a double degree program. And then of course for higher degree research, we also offer both a Master of Philosophy in Law and a Doctor of Philosophy in Law. Okay, so I'd like to now introduce our panel. We have Professor Wayne Morgan, who is the Associate Dean of Education for the ANU College of Law. He's also the director of both the Bachelor of Laws program and the Juris Doctor program. We have Dr. Philippa Ryan, who's our director of our Master of Laws program. And I'd like to point out she also has two kids who did degrees at ANU, one who also did law. So if you have any follow-up questions for her and her experience, feel free, we'll provide her details in the chat so you can email her directly. From our amazing student services team, we have our manager, Nicole King, and our deputy manager, Elaine E. And we have two current ANU law students. We have Cherish Tay. She's in her 4th year of study doing a flexible double degree in law and Asian studies. She's focusing on languages, especially Indonesian, Chinese, and Mongolian. Cherish, I think you're originally from Sydney, is that right? But you're joining us from Canberra today, thanks. We have Epi Turbio, and he's in his 2nd year of the Juris Doctor program, focusing, I think, on international law and migration law, but also kind of interested in cyber law now, is that right? He's originally from Camaligan, in the province of Camarines Sur in the Philippines, but he's joining us today from his on-campus ACOM in Toad Hall. So thanks, Epi. Wayne, I'll start with a simple question for you. Why should someone study the LLB or JD at ANU Law?
Thanks, Ash. Yes, well, look, I often say to students, if you want to change the world, study law. Law really does open up so many opportunities for you and opportunities to be really effective in whatever career you want to choose. Why study law at ANU? Well, of course, to start with, ANU is a top 5 law school in Australia and a top 20 law school globally speaking. Now, you know, that's no mean feat when you think of the number of law schools that there are globally. We have staff who are experts in a whole range of areas. We have an excellent program that is both work integrated and also academically based, and it prepares you for a range of different careers. And I'm sure we can follow up on some of these aspects as we go through. You can also specialise in various areas if you want to. This is a new feature of our programs that we're introducing. So whether you want to focus on law reform, environmental law, social justice, corporate and commercial law, or indeed government law, we have all of these specialisations. More graduates of ours end up in government than a lot of other law schools. And this, of course, is partly because of our location here in Canberra. So if you have particular interests in international and government law, that's another reason to come to ANU. So yeah, there are lots of reasons, not to mention, and I hope the students will reflect this, it's fun as well, I hope. So Ash, back to you.
Thanks very much, Wayne. Just as a follow-up question, what would be the difference between, say, studying an LLB or a Juris Doctor or the Master of Laws? program?
Right. So the LLB, of course, is our undergraduate degree. So you can do that straight out of high school entry. The JD is a graduate degree, but both of those degrees are degrees that lead to admission to legal practice. So they are regulated by the legal profession, and they must satisfy certain criteria and certain requirements so that students who do those degrees are well prepared for legal practice. Now, I'll let Pip say more about the LLM, but yes, the LLM is a graduate degree that allows you to specialise, but doesn't actually qualify you for legal practice.
Okay, thank you. So Pip, can you tell us a bit more about the Master of Laws program and who that might be for?
Thanks, Ash. Am I allowed to go rogue and answer one of Wayne's questions before you ask? Answer the one.
You can go rogue.
So you said why Canberra, why ANU? Can I just give to the audience this thought? There are very few cities in the world or towns in the world that you can genuinely say are a university town, and Canberra is one of them. And Australia really doesn't have many university towns. There are some country towns that really have a great university culture, but this is a capital city with a really strong focus on what it is to be a student in that place. And that's really powerful when you're down here. I think I notice it more because I did my degrees in Sydney, and you just don't get that sense. It's only really in Sydney that you get that feel. So I just wanted to really try and drive that home as somebody who did my degrees elsewhere. As for the Masters is wonderful because I think it really boosts an executive career or a professional career. We do not expect you to come to our Masters program with a law degree. Just come with a degree that we would describe as maybe cognate or had a bit of theory, essay writing, to prepare you for it, and a good degree. But once you're in, we will give you the world according to the law as it would apply in many, many contexts. And I think that's a real strength. Now, you don't have to specialize with our Masters. You could just do the ANU LLM, and that is a brand in its own right that we're very, very proud of. But for some people, they come into our program thinking, I actually need to focus on some particular topic areas that are going to boost my career. They're going to boost my resume, or they're going to matter when I go for that next promotion. That's why we have the specializations, and we've chosen them specifically to tie into the expertise of who we have. Now, that expertise means our resident full-time academics like the wonderful Wayne and Pip, but we also have an amazing, it's like a stable of amazing international experts who want to teach into our LLM. And I think that makes it very, very special. So the specializations are public law or private and commercial, or you can do a third really well established, which is international law. And international law is a very important specialization if you're already working in government, for example, as is public law. Or if you want to take that career overseas, if that's your next step, is to somewhere abroad, hopefully to come back again, but study with us and take it abroad. So we've got 2 new specializations which will be available soon. Anybody thinking prospectively, thinking about doing our LLM in the future, will have these specializations available, and they are human security law and new technologies law. And then just as a little package, we have this graduate certificate that you mentioned on your slide.
Excellent,
Ashley.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if you want to just do a hard and fast, 100% online while we're not allowed to be anywhere else, just over the next year or so, if you really wanted to just give your career a massive turbocharge, you could enroll in the graduate certificate and do 4 new technologies laws courses and have a specialization in that. And then if you choose, you could just convert that to the first 4 courses in an LLM. So it's just like all this choice, really flexible, very well packaged. So we've got intensives you can do online, you can do semesters on campus once we're back. But that's what's available, and it's a very, very exciting degree. And can I add one more thing, Ashley?
Sure.
I think we provide a really personalized experience for students. And I've really only got a sense of that since I started here. I had no idea how personalised it was. And I think it's a very, very special thing that arises because as you travel through, you get to know our amazing student admin and professional team, as well as the conveners who teach you. So I just wanted to add, I think that's a very, and it happens on all programs from the LLB, JD, LLM.
No, that's really important to add. Thank you so much, Pip. And thanks for covering both the master's program and the graduate certificate, because those are both really interesting programs, and the New Technologies Law program. I'll just click over to Nicole. Nicole, can you tell us about the entry requirements for the Bachelor of Laws Honours program? And just as a follow-up, you know, what can students do if they don't quite meet those requirements?
Okay, for 2020, the entry requirements into the LLB are an ATAR or equivalent of 96. So that's a change from previous years. It has been 98, and that is in an effort by the ANU to recognise that it's been a pretty tough year out there for everybody, and particularly our Year 12 entrance for next year. It's been an unprecedented year for you trying to get that ATAR up, so the ANU has recognised that. There are two ways, and I'll get Elaine to jump in if I do get this wrong, but I think I've got it under control now. Two ways that we can get into the ANU via entry. That first is our ASA, our direct entry, and that is now closed because if you've already, you've obviously already been aware of that as a Year 12 school leaver, and you would have entered your data into that system a long time ago. And those offers are made on your Year 11 results. So really, if you had the 96 at the end of Year 11, you don't have to do anything more except show up to school for the rest of the year. So that's the good news. But you do have to show up to school, yeah? You have to keep engaged, but that is your ATAR based on your Year 11 results. However, if you got 94 at the end of your Year 11 results, and then you've decided you're going to try even harder in your Year 12 year, the ANU will automatically reassess against your Year 12 results for your highest offer. So you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to reapply. You don't have to do anything. That will just be done automatically. The other way is through UAC, and that's the way it's always been done. So you put your UAC application in, and again, if you get to that 96, then you are automatically going to come into the LLB program at the ANU. Now, every year at open day, when we have normal open day and we have lots of people around us and lots of mum and dads wanting to know, well, what happens if I don't get the 96 or the 98 previously, but this year the 96? And the question, well, the answer to that is that you can still come into the ANU and you can do another degree. You can do a flexible double degree or a straight other degree, it doesn't really matter. And you can come into the ANU and then you can apply to transfer into law after you have 12 months in your other degree. So we often get questions like, well, will that put me behind? Will I have to do another year? If you're doing a flexible double degree, the answer is no. You can simply just do more of the other part of your degree first, get your GPA up, and your GPA needs to be 5.6 to transfer at this stage, which is about an ATAR of 91, 92. So definitely we recognise that once you're in the ANU, if you can get that GPA at 5.6, then we're going to say, well, you can certainly come and study law. That's good enough for us. We're going to have enough runs on the board at that point to say, okay, well, you can manage your tertiary studies. So we're willing to give you a shot and come into law. So that's how it works, Ashley, really.
Yeah. Nicole, just on the flexible double degree, I understand there are 35 or over 35 combinations or double degree combinations you can do. Can you tell us what some of the most popular ones are that students do, and how, and especially those that might enter into one of those programs first to try and get into law?
Yeah, I might get Elaine to help me with this one because we've just done the data.
Oh, okay.
What were the top 4? We've just recently got the data through.
Yeah, so one of the top ones is definitely Bachelors of Laws and Arts. A lot of students tend to want to combine these two. And the others as well, depending on what the interests are. Politics, philosophy, and economics as well is another popular one. International law is another popular one. Commerce, science, Asian studies, and international security studies are quite of the top popular ones that students combine law with. Just one thing there is we do have lots of combinations across the university in various disciplines, but one area that students can't combine law with is engineering. Just due to the both of the professional recognition or requirements for the programs, we can't combine that. So that is one of the areas that can't be combined, but literally you can combine law with any other discipline across the ANU.
Excellent, thanks, Elaine. Another frequently asked question is, about scholarships for students who particularly want to come to ANU Law. Can you offer us a short list of some scholarships that students can have a look at?
Yeah, we do have quite a lot of scholarships here at Law, particularly there's lots of scholarships across the university, but I'll just speak to the ones at Law. For commencing students, we do have the Philippa Wicks Scholarship in Law. That is for school leavers from regional and remote Australia. It's a scholarship that's very dear to our hearts as well here at the college. Applications will open in December, so anyone is welcome to apply. We also have the Freely Indigenous Student Scholarship in Law. That's for both the LLB as well as the JD program. And obviously that's for Indigenous students. And the applications for that opens in January. Both information are on the Law Scholarships and Prizes page, as well as the Central ANU Scholarships page. Once you're a student at ANU or once you're a student at Law, there are also other scholarships that are more access and equity based. So one of the popular ones that we have is a textbook grant. That sort of gives you a book voucher at the local ANU textbook place, Harry Hartog, just to help you financially with that. And applications open a few weeks prior to the start of each semester.
Excellent, thank you. And just kind of to cover up on some of those admissions and scholarship questions, just a reminder for everyone that student admin are holding the drop-in session later this afternoon at 2 p.m. But we'll move on to some questions for our students. I'll start with Cherish. Cherish, can you tell us why you chose ANU Law? And just especially coming from Sydney, you know, what were your motivations and reasons?
Yeah, well, I was very decided on ANU Law from, year 11. I decided that I wanted to move to the ANU, I wanted to go to Canberra, and I wanted to study law and Asian studies. The reason for that was partly because I knew that moving away from home and moving out of home at the end of high school would be a really exciting opportunity for me and would actually help me to be a more independent person and help me grow. I didn't want to, I knew that, I love my family, not to say that I wanted to leave my family, but that I knew that moving away from home would just broaden my horizon so much and was such an exciting thing for me that I just I have to move out of Sydney. So the reason why I picked ANU rather than, maybe a bigger city like Melbourne or Brisbane, was basically because of the Asian studies and law combination here, because I knew that Asian studies was a degree that isn't really offered at most universities in Australia. And I also knew that the law school was the best, or one of the best in Australia. And so the combination was like a winning combo. There wasn't really a doubt in my mind. Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, thanks, Cherish. Epi, can you tell us, from an international student's perspective, there's so many, places you could go. Why did you choose to study JD at ANU Law?
Definitely. At first, I was really thinking of doing JD in Sydney, because as an international student, I was like, oh, Sydney's the big city. I have to go. If I want the Australian experience, I have to go to the capital city. At that point, I thought Sydney was the capital city. But when I did my research, I was like, oh, so Canberra is the capital city. And then my brother was already here, so I was like, oh, let's see what's in Canberra. And when I did my research, the High Court is actually in Canberra. So when I look at it, the capital of the center of the government is in Canberra. So I thought, where better place to study law than where the High Court is, than where most of the government center is. Like the Parliament House is here. The center of the government is here. So that's why I went with ANU. Another thing that brought me to ANU is when I look at the rankings, like international rankings. For Australia, ANU was like top university in terms of law. I think it's just in competition with the University of Melbourne. And worldwide, ANU is also highly ranked, as Wayne said, right in the top 20. So definitely when I found out about this information, I was like, I'm going to ANU. That's it.
Excellent, awesome. Glad you're here. Glad you chose us. Cherish, so you're studying a double degree. Can you tell us if it's double the work?
It's not. It's double the credit for. You seem like you're doing more work, but actually, the course load is just a full-time course load. So, 3 or 4 courses per semester is a full-time load, and usually people who do double degrees will split their courses so they do 2 from one degree and 2 from the other degree. So it's really the same as if you were doing a single degree in terms of like the day-to-day work and semester work. The difference is that it's slightly longer for most degrees. So you would add on an extra year if you were doing a combined degree without the discipline of law. But actually, the Bachelor of Laws by itself, I'm not actually sure about this, but I'm pretty sure that it's 5 years regardless.
4 years. 4 years for a straight law degree, 5 years for a double degree.
Okay, right. So yeah, you add on 1 extra year.
Awesome. So starting back with you, Cherish, can you tell us about some extracurricular activities that you're involved in at ANU Law and how they've sort of supported your curriculum and your in-class experience?
Yeah, so there are so many. I've participated in a few, but I can't, like, the ones that I cover are not to say that this is all that's available. But, so I've participated in mooting competitions, which are run by the LSS. And basically you can start from novice mooting competitions to senior mooting competitions. And then there's also a course that's the International Jessup Moot. So there's like levels and a way to progress through them. If you're not really confident yet, you can definitely start with the novice moot, which I did. And they're really fun and also like a low stakes way to get legal practice. I also, I'm part of the Law Reform and Social Justice portfolio of committees. So I, last year and the year before, ran the Law Students for Refugees group. And so we did advocacy work funded by the College of Law, funded by the Law Reform and Social Justice portfolio, but entirely student run and in collaboration with academics that we reached out to and who were willing to help us. Basically, we did submissions to Senate inquiries. We also wrote op-eds. We volunteered with organizations in Canberra, and we also invited lawyers and academics from all over Australia to the ANU to do public lectures. Yeah. Yeah, there are so many more, but I feel like
Oh, that's all right. That's plenty of information. And I think, so you mentioned LSS, that's the Law Student Society. Is that correct at ANU?
Yeah.
Epi, how about you? What activities are you in?
Definitely. There's a lot of extracurricular activities in campus, and I know for myself because I'm definitely involved in what's going on in the campus. Currently, I'm a senior resident at Todd Hall, my residence, and I'm also the equity officer for PARSA. PARSA is the Postgraduate Students Association. I have a soft spot for caring for others. So that's why when I stepped here in ANU, I was like, I want to do something for the people that's immediately around me. And then that's why I wanted to get involved. I became an SR. I also became part of the Law Student Society as in my first year as the first year officer. From there, I transitioned to the Postgraduate Student Association for PARSA. Yeah, those are my involvement. Oh, I'm also because here in ANU we have a lot of cultural clubs. I'm also the president for the ANU Filipino Association. So definitely, if you come to ANU, there's a lot of things that you can be involved in. It's fun.
Excellent. Thanks, Epi. And Epi, you're joining us from, like you said, Toad Hall, or your residence. And I just wanted to know if you could tell a little bit about what it is like on campus, and maybe right now. How's it like living on campus?
Right now, living on campus, it's a bit difficult with the current situation. But definitely, living on campus helped me develop a lot of things that I wouldn't have developed had I stayed back home. There's this multicultural awareness that you will develop, especially where I live, where it has a multicultural and a diverse setting. We're about 98% international students here. But with regards to other on-campus accommodations, this is where you usually build friends. When you come in from overseas and you don't know anybody, usually the ones that you live with are the ones that will become your friends, and you will build connections that will become your lifelong friends. Here in Toad Hall, I have friends from all over the world. It's already coming to a point when I look at the globe or a map and oh, this one's from this one, this one's from this one. Like, you build a global network of friends that you really treasure.
Yeah, well, thanks, Effie. I'm really glad that it's still, you still having a good experience despite the situation right now. And just kind of on that, we currently, we don't have students able to take advantage of a lot of international opportunities. But Elaine, are you able to give us a quick, breakdown of some of the opportunities that we normally host or offer at ANU Law for exchange or international opportunities, even though they're not happening maybe right now?
Yeah, sure. I think we definitely understand the importance of our students being global, and we definitely encourage students having an opportunity to go overseas as well. So there's different options here at the College of in Law. One thing is students can actually do it as an exchange program, which usually means that you go on a semester-based opportunity, you do it in one of our partner institutions, and take perhaps a few courses, which is equivalent to a full-time semester load here. We also have our own overseas courses that goes to Kyoto, Alabama, Geneva, and as well as Myanmar that you can enroll in as a course. We also have quite a few independent study abroad opportunities. So what happens with this is you actually apply to them independently, you pay the fees over there, you get a pre-approval from us to do that, so that when you complete the course there, you get credit back to your law degree here. And courses that students have done tends to be law courses in King's College London, as well as perhaps law practicum with the Australian Consortium for In-Country Indonesian Studies. And some of these opportunities, especially in the Asia Pacific, you may even be eligible for the DFAT's New Colombo Plan funding as well. And if there's an opportunity that you see that you'd be interested in taking a course, we do have a website that students can actually apply and get pre-approval. One thing is we do not allow students to take our compulsory courses elsewhere, but any of the electives, students are welcome to seek approval for it.
Excellent, thank you, Elaine. And yeah, fingers crossed that those opportunities will happen sooner rather than later, but we'll just have to see how the situation plays out over the next year. So we do have two panels, just for everyone's knowledge, we do have two other panels dedicated to student experience at ANU. We have one this coming Thursday on international law student experience, and one on Friday titled Life as an ANU Law Student. So just for those who are joining us today, you can find out a bit more about that student experience later on. Moving on to career pathways for our programs. Excuse me, Wayne, I know you touched base a bit, or touched on about the types of career pathways that you take as part of a JD or LLB, and the difference between that with a master's, but can you tell us specifically maybe what industries ANU Law alumni go into after graduation from those JD and LLB programs?
Sure, Ash, and I also see a couple of the questions that have been posted relate to this, so I'll sort of address those as we go along as well. So first of all, in terms of generally speaking, look, one thing that's really impressive is the incredibly diverse range of careers that law graduates end up in. And so it's still the case that, roughly 50 to 60% of law graduates end up in some form of legal practice. But of course, that still leaves 40 to 50% that end up in other careers. And interestingly, just over the last 12 months, I've been doing a lot of consultations with employers of our graduates, and these come from a range of professions, not just the legal profession. And, one of the things that I found so impressive was the fact that, all of these employers, whether they be large corporate entities that specialize in consultancy, whether they be the corporate-based law firms, whether they be NGOs who specialise in human rights type practice, or indeed whether they be government departments, they were all so roundly complimentary about the quality of our graduates. And so, yeah, the range of careers really is diverse. The world is your oyster. Now, it is true that more of our graduates end up, as I said before, in government departments. That's partly because of our location. Another area that more of our graduates end up is actually in the international civil service. So, you know, a number of our graduates end up in jobs in, say, the UN, in Geneva or New York. We have internships, which I think we'll talk about later, with places like the World Bank and the International Court of Justice, one of the few law schools in the world that has an internship to the International Court of Justice. So, you know, these sorts of opportunities mean that a number of our graduates end up globally. The final thing I'll say, you know, perhaps before I'll hand over to Pip to see if she has anything to add, there was a question here about, yeah, you know, recognising that graduates from ANU Law end up in government and international careers, but what about the corporate and commercial sector? And are the opportunities the same? Well, yeah, look, again, I did a number of consulting with large private law firms in Australia, some of whom are based here in Canberra. But of course, one of the great things now these days about, you know, the ease, normally, not right at this moment, but the ease normally with moving is that a number of students from ANU Law end up doing internships or placements in a number of the large firms or other commercial entities in Sydney, in Melbourne, or indeed overseas, Singapore, Hong Kong. And we are also increasing more and more virtual internships, you know, whereby people will be placed, yeah, with a firm, but will operate remotely. Or indeed with an NGO, but will operate remotely. For example, the Kimberley Indigenous Legal Service. So, yeah, the range is extraordinary. And so, as I said before, the world is your oyster. Pip?
Yeah, Pip, do you mind talking about the Master of Laws? And I think we have a question here as well, specifically about opportunities, career opportunities, specializing in international law.
Okay, yes. Can I do what I did before, and just because I do coordinate a subject that has graduate LLB and JD students who are in Canberra, obviously doing their ANU degree, but looking to Sydney, Perth, Melbourne for their careers. I just wanted to say, a really good question that I saw on the Q&A, which Wayne just spoke to about this, you know, what are the opportunities for corporate placements when most of the corporates are in Sydney and Melbourne? Well, that's true. I'm on the board of a national law firm that doesn't have an office in Canberra. Doesn't stop us from recruiting from ANU. Yesterday, I spent half an hour with one of my current students who has a job interview with Herbert Smith Freehills in Perth for winter 2021. Now that's a clerkship. And I said to her, why Perth? And she said, that's where I'm from. That's where my family is. I'll go home for the winter and do my clerkship at Freehills and then come back to the ANU to continue my studies. And I think you need to really think about what your global and your national self is going to look like when you position yourself at the national university, because every single employer across the country is very interested in graduates from ANU. And we see it all the time. The student who I'm supervising for his honours thesis at the moment has a placement next year with the Federal Court based in Sydney. And that's a placement that came about either because of or despite the fact that he's ANU. I think it's probably because. And look, my own daughter went straight from ANU to a law firm in Canberra and then went to their office in Sydney, having got all of her work experience at the magistrates' courts in Queanbeyan. And that was 20 minutes from where she was living. She used to cycle to work. And so you are very close to New South Wales and those courts, but you've got the High Court right on your doorstep. So anyway, that's my little piece about that. You've got to really think expansively. The world is going to be your oyster. As for the LLM, I think, as I said before, we do see a very strong executive presence in the LLM. When I speak to LLM students and say, oh, so what are you doing now? They've got jobs, they've got careers, they're either taking 6 months out or a year out from that to do it on campus and to be in Canberra from wherever they are in the world or from wherever they are in Australia. So I've got one at the moment who's here for the whole year from Papua New Guinea, another one from Brisbane, and another one from Singapore, all in Canberra for a year to do all of their courses full time. But then I'll also talk to students who are doing it online at the moment and who are in Canberra or in Melbourne. I had one who was on his bicycle in Brisbane on Thursday night. I said, "Where are you?" And he said, "I'm just exercising. I'm on my bike." He had to pull over, have a little chat. I think it's really important, and that wasn't a class, by the way. That was a session we have every Thursday called Mastermind, where we just talk about the law in society. It's great fun. And anybody who's listening now who wants to look up Mastermind, come and join us anytime, even if you're not doing a master's. I think it's really important to be really flexible in your thinking about your own career.
And just, I see that we do have quite a few questions about workplace and internships, and just sort of on careers. Elaine, would you mind giving us a couple of points about internship options available at ANU Law?
Sure. I think here you've heard from both Wayne and Pip how we appreciate students being able to put law into practice, and we do feel it's important to prepare our students for what's after graduation. So we do have quite a few, we call them clinics, as well as internships, where it's really to give students the opportunity to engage with real clients, real problems, and real deadlines in specific legal environment. So I know there's a session on clinics later on, so I'll leave it for now. But I think law internship is a course here at the ANU where it's credit bearing. And for that, we have two types, where one, you can actually seek your own internship. So as what Wayne and Pip have said, students have gone home during the summer break. They found an opportunity where they are, as long as they meet the criteria of making sure that it is going to fit into the internship course, they do the internship there. And one thing with us is, as long as it meets the requirements of the internship course and it's endorsed, we actually cover the insurance. And that's an important thing that most employers probably want to hear before they would basically agree for an internship. So with COVID, it's really, I suppose, made us sort of like think out of the box, because I think previously internships, we always thought that it would have to be in person, have to be in the location. And we thought with this situation, we wouldn't have as many partners or hosts saying yes to taking our students, or for students being able to actually find an internship opportunity. But we were actually very, very wrong. We have students currently interning in Ireland, in the UK, in various parts of Australia, not because they're there, but also they're doing it remotely. And a lot of the hosts and partners are actually quite happy with that. So in terms of that, we also have a partnered internship program whereby students apply to us to be placed with one of our partners. We have a huge range from government departments like DFAT, Treasury, ACT Magistrate Courts, as well as law firms across Canberra, or interstate in Western Australia with the Kimberley Community Legal Service, where they have got offices in Cronulla and Broome, as well as the North Australian Aboriginal Justice Agency, NAJA, across the Northern Territory. We also have, not really as an internship course itself, but we do have a partnership agreement where we have sent students to firms in Singapore, Hong Kong, and China, specifically in Beijing and Shanghai as well. That has worked really well. It's more of a shorter period of time, but just as an experience for them to work in those sort of situations and those countries. As Wayne has mentioned, we also have specific international internship opportunities, not just for current students, but also alumni. And it could be that you've been an alumni for more than 5 years, you'll still be eligible for that. And this internship opportunities actually comes with a scholarship as well. So for example, the International Court of Justice at The Hague, as well as the Permanent Court of Arbitration at The Hague, the World Bank in Washington, the International Bar Association in London, which is actually supervised by our very own ANU alumni. And the scholarship for that is actually funded by the ANU London alumni as well. So you can see that the ANU, we do love to give back to ANU. So a lot of these scholarships, opportunities, as well as internships, some of them are funded or basically organized with our alumni, especially with the ICJ and the PCA. We've been very, very lucky in terms of, especially for the PCA, where they have an agreement, they'll take our students every year, regardless of their own application process externally, they'll take our students every year, acknowledgement to the high caliber of students that we have. And the ICJ, there's very few students that they accept every year across the world. And so far, the ANU has been very, very lucky to be able to get places in most years. So yes, so definitely we are quite renowned internationally as well. And lots of firms and all these organizations are very happy to accept our students.
And I
Excellent.
guess
Thanks,
just to
Elaine.
cover off on the clinics too, because we haven't mentioned the clinical programs, and we did have a question up there. So yeah, the clinical programs we also run every year. And even in COVID, we've managed to run 6 out of 8 of our clinical programs in second semester, and we're planning the same for Sem 1 next year. So we have a community law clinic, and during that time, students do a placement with our Canberra Community Law Legal Centre. We have an environmental law clinic that works with the Environmental Defenders Office in Canberra. Indigenous Community Law Clinic. Now this one, this one sort of currently is being replaced with our Kimberley programs. However, that one's still going to be obviously COVID dependent, depending on whether we can get into the Kimberleys next year. So that one's just on hold for the time being. We have an international law clinic where we work with NGOs and ACT government agencies, and that one will also go ahead regardless of COVID, which is great. Our Myanmar law clinic, as Elaine said, that will be dependent on COVID, but at this stage we've deferred Myanmar from January to July, so fingers crossed that we can get that one up and running. And also we have a prison legal literacy clinic as well here in Canberra, and we're hoping to get that one. That one didn't run in semester 2 this year because of the issues with COVID and getting into the Alexander McConaughey Centre, which is our youth prison legal clinic where it runs from on centre in Canberra. So we'll see, but hopefully fingers crossed again. And our public interest law clinic will also run again regardless. So we've found creative ways to get around that. Now, obviously the placement is a little different, although our community clinic is going ahead in the legal centre as we speak with social distancing. So we're trying to get all of those back up and running so that we have those hands-on experiences ready to go again for next year.
Excellent. Thank you both. I would like to point out to everyone that there is so much on this to cover, but we do have other sessions that will go into more detail about not just these clinical courses and internships. We've got a viewing of that on Tuesday. There's a video that's on demand that'll be provided then. But we also have an alumni panel, which will talk about career opportunities and internships that people may have taken, et cetera, later in the week as well. But just so we have a bit of time to try and address some of the questions that have come through the chat, I just wanted to quickly ask just from the panel to help give some advice about the current situation with studying remotely. We've got courses.
Yeah, I can see we popped one in there as answered under the JD, which we actually haven't answered. So I think I'll go back to Madeline, because I think she was the very first question. She's asked if she could study the JD part-time and how it's going to work with full-time work as well. And the answer is absolutely yes. All of our degrees you can do part-time, including the JD. And in fact, most of our students that do study the JD also still do also work full-time, Madeline, so it's really common. And we have, at the moment, we have a student who's only doing one course at a time, and then we have some that do 2 or 3. So a full-time course load, I think, as Cherish said earlier, is 4 courses, but for us, as long as we've got one covered. Our international student rules are a little different, because if you are studying on a visa in normal times, in non-COVID times, you are expected to do a full-time course load. However, at the moment, if you are an international student, can you commence from your home country, and can you commence part-time if that's all you can deal with? Absolutely yes. All bets are off at the moment in terms of the normal rules. So really, we're really happy to facilitate and assist wherever we can, because it really is a difficult period. So absolutely, we have a course structure for the JD part-time and the LLB part-time, and they're both on, and the LLM part-time for that matter, and they're on our website. But again, if you've got specific questions around how you would do your course, please pop in this afternoon and talk to Elaine and I, because it will be around course structure. So hopefully that does help. And the other, I think there's probably another question, if I go back to the open one, that's similar around the JD online. Look, we don't offer the JD online anymore as a course. It has now been disestablished. But again, it's really tricky, because in these times, are we delivering it online? Of course we are, along with everything else. So as it stands right now, and I'm really loath to give any long-term advice, because it's changing every day. But for semester 2 this year, what we did is our master's courses remained completely online. So we had nothing on campus at all until December at this stage, until we can reassess, which is sad for us because we do love having our master's students on campus. But that's the way of the world at the moment. So we put our master's ones online. For our LLB and our JD, what we've done is kept our big lectures and our electives online, but we have given students the opportunity to return to campus for a tutorial. So for our compulsory subjects, we have tutorials attached to each and every one of those. And we've given students the option to come back for the tutorial so that students like Epi, who are so far away from home at the moment and stuck in residence, I mean, they're at the ANU anyway. So, I mean, it was just a no-brainer for us to do what we could to get those students re-engaged into their tutorials. But obviously we can't do it for lectures because we just don't have the space. We'd need stadium size lecture theatres in order to social distance 1.5 meters away from everybody. So we figured, okay, well, let's do it in the tutorial space where we typically have between 15 and 22 students, I think, in a tute. So we can do that quite comfortably in our moot courts and our law theatres and our bigger spaces. So that's what we've done. And we were really amazed at the take up at that, to be honest. We've been inundated with students who are so happy to be back. So all things being equal, if things don't change too much, I'm assuming we're going to have a similar situation next year. But as I said, if we continue and there's a miracle vaccine next week, who knows? So it's really tricky for us to predict what's going to happen. But I think based on what's happened this year and our experience, we're thinking it's going to be similar next year. So I hope that helps a little bit, but I cannot give you any real certainty because it is the ANU's and our Vice-Chancellor's intention. As soon as we can come back, we will come back. And so when that happens, then obviously our online offerings will diminish significantly as we return to campus. So I hope that helps a little bit. And I'm sorry I can't be more definitive on that.
No, that's excellent, Elaine. Nicole and Elaine. And as everyone knows, we are having a session later on today, so people can drop in and ask in more detail, and for different situations and particulars, you can join their session later on. And thanks very much for popping on to some of the questions that we have in the chat. I think we'll try to get across as many of these as we can now. So I think you've done a great job covering a suite of them just now, Nicole. There's one on here that I might pose to Wayne. What would distinguish ANU law from Melbourne law and Sydney law? And also, I think Pip, you can fill in on this one too. Particularly, this person has noted that UNSW law has an emphasis on human rights. And is there a point of distinction for ANU law?
Yeah, so look, the first thing I just want to note is, because of the requirements for admission to legal practice, of course, there are certain things that every law school has to do. So, you will see the similar sort of compulsory courses, at all law schools. We make sure, as I said before, that we train students for a range of different sorts of careers. Having said that, though, I would have to note that one of the points of distinction is our focus on government and international law. And, that is why we have a whole range of courses in this area, and why a number of our graduates, as I said earlier, do end up with international careers. Or, working in the international civil service, so in international organisations, et cetera, et cetera. And also because of that specialisation in domestic types of practice that have a link with international law. So international trade, for example, and all of the rules that govern, international trade. So, I would highlight, government and international law as one of our specialties, but I don't want people to think when I say that doesn't relate to the corporate and commercial world, because, we all know how interlinked, all of those areas are. Apart from that, we have a particular program in social justice and law reform. And, even just yesterday, the director of our social justice and law reform program was talking about all of the legal submission writing that some of our students have been doing, and the effect that is having on a number of government inquiries. So, that would be another thing that I would highlight as a particular specialty of ANU law. I should probably leave it there, Ash.
Could I just follow up quickly? There's a question here about practicing law in other countries, for example, the US, with an ANU law degree.
Yeah, okay. So this depends upon the individual rules of every country, right? So yeah, law degrees are not internationally recognised automatically. But even with the US, you know, for example, and I did this myself, once you've done a law degree in Australia, you can go over and you can do a 1-year LLM in the US, and then you are entitled to apply for admission in the US, all right? So you have a quicker pathway. There are other countries within our own region that do immediately recognise an ANU degree. So Singapore, for example, India, yeah, a number of other sort of Southeast Asian countries. And of course, those in the common law world, so the UK, etc., New Zealand. But yeah, no, it is not, no law degree is automatically entitles you to practice in sort of every country in the world.
Excellent, thanks Wayne. And just sort of putting off that, especially with ANU's sort of, their offerings at ANU Law and especially specialties. I think there's a question here, Pip, that you'll be able to answer. There's a question, how will advancements in technology affect legal studies and law, i.e. job availability and the judicial process? So I think with your new program, Graduate Certificate in New Technologies Law, and a focus coming soon, can you answer that kind of briefly?
Yeah, well, as at 2020, more than ever, everything's changed. I'm on the board of a law firm, as I said before, and we don't expect the world to ever be the same again. Paper is gone, and paper was ungreen and it was ridiculous, and who wants to push trolleys down Phillip Street or on the terrace in Perth? Paper is gone, that's changed forever, but it's not just the way we practice that's changed. The way the law interacts with society and business has changed because technology is changing the way we all deal with each other. And we're not going back. No one's going back to the 1940s or the 1960s. It's just going to keep changing. I think it's great. I think it creates new opportunities. There are whole new areas of study. Two quick things that we're doing in our program. Last semester, in a core compulsory subject for all LLB and JDs, we had 480 students designed an app to automate the preparation of a pleading. Some students were started off just going, why am I doing this? Don't I just write essays? But by the end, they all had a working app, which was great. And then the student I spoke to yesterday told me she got the clerkship interview because she'd created the app. Now, 8 of those students are now working on an internship in an elective that I'm convening, and they're designing an app to assist the courts in delivering some social justice aims. And we're doing that in conjunction with the National Judicial College of Australia, which is based at the ANU. So, I mean, this is the kind of core integration that we have. Those students designing that app are then going to compete in an international competition run by Georgetown Law School in Washington, DC, with about 10 other universities all over the world, where students are showing how they're using technology to achieve better aims in the law, either efficiency or cost saving, better client service or social justice. So like, it's very, very exciting. Everything's changed and we are aware of it, and our programs right the way from LLB, JD through to grad cert, LLM, we're giving you the opportunity to grasp what that means and how you can change your career future with that in mind. It's really, I mean, in my view, it's really important.
Excellent, thanks, Pip. I'm mindful we do have quite a lot of questions on here. I'm just going to pull one out that might be another question that many people might have. Maybe Nicole, you can answer this one. As a year 10 student, what's the best way to prepare for and increase someone's chances of admission? Anything that they could know about, or a piece of advice, something they should study?
As a formal high school secondary teacher in this very space, do what you love. That's the only advice I can give you. You will hear people say, you know, do science because you're going to get a higher ATAR. Yeah, you're going to get a higher ATAR if you're good at physics. But you know what? If you're not and your passion is law and history, then guess what? You're going to do physics and you're going to be that lovely little tail at the bottom to push up the students who are really good at physics. So my advice is always to do what you love. Absolutely. There is no other way to get that ATAR where you need to get it. And also go and do some work experience. That's my other advice, particularly because you're in year 10, you've got the time. And I know all our secondary schools in the ACT run work experience right through year 10, 11 and 12. Some of them will tell you they don't, but they do. Go and speak to the career advisor. It might not even be the recognised year work experience program that every school does in year 10, but you can certainly as a year 11 student also just say, actually, I'm going to go and do a work experience in my holidays. Can you help me? And there is not a secondary school in Australia that won't say yes. So that's the sort of thing you need to be doing, and go and approach somebody in a law firm. Go and write some letters, get on the internet, send some emails, do that legwork. And because a lot of lawyers, a lot of law firms, they're so impressed when students are so young and want to be so interested. They're going to happily say, come on board for a week of your school holidays. And you know what? And you do a week in a law firm and you'll either know yes or no, one way or the other. And you've worked it out pretty early and you haven't wasted a degree getting there. So that's my 2 bits of advice. If you're still in year 10, you're so lucky. You've got a lot of time to get this right. But don't let anybody try and tell you that you have to do 4-unit maths and physics and chemistry to get that magic ATAR, because it's not true. Okay, you've just got to do what you're passionate. Oh, unless of course you're very good at 4-unit maths and chemistry and physics, and then go for it. But if you love music and history and art and legal studies and you want to do those humanities subjects, no problem at all. And in fact, you've got to go that way because that's what you're passionate about, and you've got to do that to get that ATAR. So yeah, that's
such excellent advice. So good, Elaine. Thank you for that. I'm so sorry. I know there's several questions left in the chat, but unfortunately we're pressed for time. We must try to wrap this up. So I think most of you should see provided in the chat, we've got some links where we'll provide a recording of this session. There's also a link for the drop-in session that Nicole and Elaine are hosting later today at 2 p.m. You can also book an appointment from Monday to Friday with student administration. And we also can offer you an opportunity to book a call with an academic or someone else to provide advice. So please see those links provided in the chat. And then of course, you can always email us at inquiries.law, which will be to Nicole's team for any specific questions you may have. But I'm afraid we won't be able to get to everyone's specific questions today. So I'll just quickly share my screen that can also provide some quick links. You know, you can use it's a QR code, very fancy, to be able to contact us and find out more about those other sessions that we're offering. But we're very stoked to be able to talk to you today, and I thank our panel for joining, and thank you all for joining us as well. So we hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we hope to see you at some of our other sessions offered next week and onwards. Thank you very much.
Good work, Ashley. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks, Ashley. It's been a pleasure.
Thank
See you
you
all.